It's the Growler with PD&Jay. Here to analyze for you today. From Growler Bet to Jay's got stats. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Growler Podcast.
All right. Welcome into the latest edition of PD&J on the Growler. Paul Daner Jr. and Jay Morrison. Excited to be with you on a Wednesday because all our days are thrown off, but we're not going to make a big deal about it, even though we feel very out of place. It's okay. We're going to do it.
I kind of wish we had this every week. I like having it'd be impossible because if it was Monday game every week, then it would be back on a normal schedule. But I do like having the extra day built in.
Oh, don't worry. We'll pay for it next week, Jay, when everything gets shoved into a much smaller span of time. But that's okay. We're not going to worry about next week's problems. There's plenty of problems this week to talk through that we're going to get to. So wait for that. Mo Egger is going to join us, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Zac Taylor conversation that is going on everywhere, as it does every time the Bengals lose. And so we're going to touch on that with him. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the news, some of the, I don't know if we want to call them red flags, because Sunday was kind of a red flag in its own right, but some of the underlying maybe red flags about this team in terms of what this season is going to end up looking like. We're going to have our Camargo Insurance run passer boot, talking quarterbacks. Jay's got stats and trivia. We have unprecedented times in the Growler Bet, Jay. Sent me for a loop having to figure out how to handle this. But we're going to do it. We're going to tackle that coming up later in the show as well. So all of that coming your way. Before we get into that, want to remind everybody about our next live show. Our next live show is going to be on Sunday, October 5th. Bengals-Lions are in the late window. We're going to go at noon, from noon to 1 at BetMGM and Tom's Watch Bar down at the Banks. Excited about that one. We have so much fun at these, of course. We'll be giving away tickets to the Steelers Thursday night football game, so you can come down and win that. We're coming up with ways that we're going to challenge you. We did the Jenga Super Bowl last time, and it was very intense and fun. We're going to make more silly things happen at this one for that. We'll have other giveaways, of course, and we'll have the special parlay boost that you can only get when you come to our show. So come on down to those. We have a bunch of those going on this year, but the next one is on the 5th before the Lions game. We will go from noon to 1 down at BetMGM. Okay. A little bit of news for us to get into, Jay. Burrow was back on Monday. He literally rolled in from out of the team meeting, had one of the scooters with his leg up and all wrapped and everything like that. A little surprising to see Burrow back already after having his Friday surgery.
Yeah, no, timing wise, surprising, but knowing him, not surprising. It see a lot of guys would probably take some time off, and I think even he's going to be around this team a lot more than a lot of guys that are injured would. Now it is a little different because he's not officially out for the year. There is a chance to come back, so that would make sense to stay involved and stay in all the meetings. But yeah, it didn't really surprise me to see him, just knowing how he's built and how he's going to want to be a part of this moving forward. You know, T kind of joked, what was it, Thursday, we talked to him before the game, what him and Jamar went over, and they were going to go over the game plan with Joe if he's interested. Someone said, you think he'd actually be interested in that? And he's like, yeah, I do think he would be interested in that, even though he's not playing. So not super surprised to see him maybe that quickly after surgery, but made sense to see him come out of that meeting.
Yeah, I just meant surprised by timing. Yeah, how quickly he was kind of already back and hanging out in the team meeting. Yeah, I expect him to be pretty involved, and we might hear from him sometime soon. We'll see when he's ready to talk about all of this that's going on. Injury-wise, Samaje Perine avoided a more serious injury to the thumb on his right hand. Looks like there's a chance he could even play this week, but they were thinking it was going to be an extended absence, obviously, if it was broken or something like that. So good news, I guess, there. We have Noah Fant going through the concussion protocol. So we'll see if he's able to go this week or if he has to miss. Dalton Reisner, it's called upper calf. I guess there's still a chance that he could play this week. It's a question of health, performance, all of that going to kind of play together into what they're figuring out going forward at guard. Sad news yesterday, Jay, and that of Rudi Johnson passing away. Just awful stuff. 45 years old, a central figure in those super fun mid 2000s teams. I went back and, he had 3 straight seasons of at least 1,300 yards and 12 touchdowns. Only 5 running backs this century can claim 3 seasons of that at all, much less 3 in a row. I mean, he was just relentless, consistent. And by all accounts, I wasn't around the team when he was there. By all accounts, people that were just awesome to deal with and a super great dude, giving of his time, very genuine and down to earth, and really sad to hear that news yesterday.
I remember I was around the team. Then I only covered games. I wasn't down there on an everyday basis, but even seeing how important he was in those years, I still think if you made a list of the top 5 underrated guys in Bengals history, I think he'd be on it. His name just kind of gets lost for some reason when you think about Bengals greats, and the 2 greatest or the 2 largest single season rushing totals in team history. Just really, really important to everybody. Focused on Chad and TJ and Carson Palmer in the passing game, and Rudi was really he set all that up with his ability to run the ball. And I think a lot of people just kind of gloss over him when they think of the great Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, that group didn't really take off until Rudi entered the equation. I mean, once he showed up in 2003, he has the huge game against Houston that sets up, maybe one of, if it was voted, and we've done voting on this before, one of the favorite wins in Bengals fans' history, the game against Kansas City, also featured a heavy dose of Rudi Johnson. And just that's really what elevated that offense to the level that it ended up being. And it's such a fun time for Bengals fans. And Rudi was such a big part of that. And so just sad to hear. And, I don't want to speculate, but you hear the reports of what is going on, what happened. And it's just, man, I worry about these football players. I worry about them. Like, you hear stories like this. This is not like this is the only time that you hear things like this coming out. And, it's just, be careful, man. Be safe, be thoughtful. Remember that these guys playing these games are human beings, and it's just you wish the best for everybody after football, and you know how hard that can be as guys try to exit. So sad news about Rudi Johnson. Let's flip forward and talk a little bit about this current team and what we have seen. They're 2-1, but I think maybe it was Ted Karras we were talking to in the locker room, who was like, yeah, it somehow feels so much worse than it did last year at 0-3 when everybody was freaking out at the same point last year. They are 2-1. They did get absolutely run ruled in Minnesota, and it feels really bad. I did a dive. I did a J. Okay. And so I said, well, okay, early blowout loss. I feel like you got to throw out the week 1 wonkiness. You get a lot of weird blowouts and weird scores that happen in week 1. But when you get into that first month, how much is getting your doors blown off indicative of you just have a team that's not good enough and you learn pretty quick, right? And it's a battle you fight all year and you can't come out of. So I went through, I said, how about 30 points? You lose by 30 points in the first month of the season. I threw out week 1. And what does it look like at the end of the year? Well, here's where it ended up landing. Okay. The last 13 times a team has lost by 30 plus points. early in the year, you see what their final record is, what they did next in the next week. There's a few wins in the next week, a lot of close games in the next week. Dolphins fans are like, let me tell you about this. They had 3 straight years. They lost by 30-plus points in the first month of the season. Tell me anything you notice about these final records, Jay.
Not good.
They're all bad except one. Last year, we had the Rams end up 10-7 and make the playoffs. That is the lone team to make the playoffs at the end of the season. And only 2 of them even had a winning record, those 21 Dolphins. There was a lot of quarterback stuff happening, and they were kind of a weird example here where Tua was in and out, and they ended up making a run and sneak in at 9-8. But it's not just that, there's not a lot of winning records. 4-13, 4-13, 4-13, 4-13. I see a lot of 4-13. I see 3 wins. I see 5 wins. I see 6 wins. Up and down this list, it is a premium indicator that you're screwed. Like it really, the Rams last year can be studied. They had a very young team that really came of age late in the season, but it is not that anybody needs to know that Sunday was an indication that things are maybe bad, but I think the history of that type of a performance in that window of time in the season is very concerning. And again, we knew that. The moment Joe Burrow got hurt, we knew this season was a giant red flag and could be problematic and could look like I've been kind of doing the pacing of we've done this over time over the Burrow window. Like the good times was like the mid 2000s there, the 04, 05. We've maybe reached 08, the Ryan Fitzpatrick season, right? 4-11-1. There was a bad tie. They couldn't win a game. Like, you wonder if this is the 08 window, which is good news for the 26 Bengals, I guess. They could be the 09 year where they make the playoffs, right? But it just there's a lot of bad. There's a lot of bad suggested in that.
Yeah, and I mean, bad teams play bad. I did kind of a similar dive, but I took it from the point of how many teams have been 2-1 and had a point differential of minus 33 or greater or less, I guess it would be. There's only 3 other instances in NFL history. One of these is in 1961. The Lions had a minus 44 point differential, and they finished 8-5-1. The last team to do it, the 1988 Oilers, were 2-1 with a minus 36 point differential. They turned it around, went 10-6, made the playoffs. So
what happened? Didn't they have is that the Glanville Weish?
No, that was 89, I believe.
The next year.
Yeah, they beat the Bengals 41-6 in week 15. They lost to the Bengals in Cincinnati in week 8. Those Oilers actually advanced. They beat the Browns in the first round of the playoffs, and then they lost to the Bills, which 88 I think would have been part of that. No, 88 is when the Bills lost to the Bengals the following week in the AFC Championship game. But it's happened. It's, if you're 2-1, and we kind of talked about this in the walkout, 1 is 1. It was an ugly loss, but it was a loss. And that's all it was, is 1 loss. Yep, there's a lot of red flags, a lot of things we're going to talk about that led to that. But in the grand scheme of things, on the win-loss ledger, it's 1 loss. It can be overcome, no matter how ugly it was.
Yeah. I sort of spent some time yesterday going through. I always like to look at the predictive advanced metrics at the end of each week, see where the Bengals stand. I tweeted those out, and they showed what you would think. The Bengals are 2-1. That record is not indicative of their level of play.
No. They're
far worse. I mean, they are a bottom quarter team. Their offense is truly terrible. I mean, we've now documented in every space imaginable how bad the run game has been. Their passing attack isn't much better. We're probably not talking about that strictly because the run game has been so bad. And yeah, they're tied together by the offensive line largely. But I mean, it's bad. They are EPA per play. They're 31st right now. Adjusted net yards per attempt, they're 31st right now. We know these because you listen to the show. It makes you a very smart Bengals fan, sports fan. You know how predictive those are to success. The two most predictive. And points per drive, they're 26th. Success percentage, they're 22nd. 3-and-out percentage, they're 31st. Like, this is your offense. And that's half Burrow, half Browning. We know that that's got a long way to go. The defense has been probably, if we in a vacuum said after 3 games, I'd give you a defense that's 19th in EPA per play and 17th in adjusted net yards per attempt defense, you'd be like, wow, that's what you're hoping for, creeping to average, one that gets better as the season goes along. It doesn't mean they've been great, but like it's probably among the best you could hope for early in this season as they flip forward from what it was last year and try to get some solid footing under Al Golden. It's going to be a matter of if they can figure out this offense.
Yeah, and maybe Isaiah Rodgers did the Bengals defense a favor by running those back for touchdowns. If he gets tackled after his interception and his fumble return, maybe the Vikings go down and put 2 touchdown drives together, and those rankings look a lot worse. But it's all about the offense. It's surprising. I mean, the run game, not as much. I know they were leaning into Chase Brown and thought it was going to be a really big year, but they just haven't been great at running the ball. The passing game is a bit of a surprise, especially when you can't run the ball and you got to lean into the passing game. And even the success, like Jake Browning, he found Jamar. And I know it's only been 6 quarters, but just a little shocking that they are where they are. Cleveland, you throw that out. Cleveland's always made those games ugly, but what this passing offense has done the last 8 quarters is a big surprise.
I'm seeing a lot of people talk about, oh man, this Jaguars defense is a lot better than you think. Top 5 defense, put some respect on their name. They put 31 on them. I think it's the one time in 3 games they haven't had a conservative game plan. They had a conservative game plan in Cleveland. They had a conservative game plan in Minnesota with hopes of sort of grinding out a game that's about the turnover differential and playing it a little safer and hoping that keeps them out of problematic situations in terms of 3rd and longs and all that stuff. That was the plan. They hoped to kind of replicate the Cleveland plan a little bit in Minnesota. Obviously, they hoped it would be a little more effective. But that is throw it away. Like you throw it away. Like, go after people. At a certain point, you do have to trust Jake Browning to be able to let it rip. That's who you are. Like, I really don't like identity talk. Especially early in the year, everyone's searching for identity. What the hell does that mean? What is anyone talking about when we start talking about identity? Like, but they are Jamar and T. Like, that's who you are. That has to be the number one thing they think about every week. And I understand the strategy of we've lost games early in season because there's problems and turnovers exacerbate them, and it's like, let's just play clean and have our guys make a couple of plays, and that can be enough. Too many of these early season games are lost by not playing clean. But I think you learn on Sunday to throw that away a little bit with this team and go out there and have Jake Browning let it rip against Denver on Monday Night Football. And I think they'll play better. I do think Sunday was an anomaly that has sent this fan base into the dark place. And I hear you. And I understand it. We just ran through some of what these numbers mean and what Sunday means. Like, I get all that. I think you got to give it time a little bit before it turns into everything is awful and it's screwed up forever.
Yeah. I mean, you almost take the 3rd and 4th quarter against Minnesota and just throw it out. Like, none of that. You're down as much as you were. I don't care. People talking about the game plan. There was no game plan in the second. I mean, whatever the game plan was out the window in the 2nd quarter. That what they did in the second half is not what they planned to do. So, yeah, it's ugly, like Ted said. No, and it was funny. Pitch mentioned that too. That it feels. He's like, we felt a hell of a lot worse at this time last year, sitting in this room, being 0-3. That one loss makes 2-1 feel incredibly bad. But I think. I keep going back to it. It is one loss. There's things you need to learn from it, things you need to improve. but I don't know how much you can take away. And even though we're going over all these stats and everything, and the second half at Minnesota played into a lot of that, but I don't know how much you can take away from those final 2 quarters. That was just basically hoping for a running clock and getting out of there as healthy as they could.
Let's fast forward a little bit. It's time, Jay, for our Camargo Insurance run, pass, or boot. There's Josh, our guy from Camargo, in the RPB robe with the gavel and weighing in with this week's run, pass, or boot. By now, you know Josh. He's been a listener for a decade. He's our judge and jury. If you want your RPB read on the show, send it to Josh at CamargoInsurance.com. He will weigh the best each week and decide which is the victor of the run, pass, or boot question that we answer. When you work with Josh at Camargo on your insurance, there's no fluff. There's no runaround. Just one-on-one help from somebody who gets it. He works with the best carriers in the industry, so he finds the perfect coverage for your home, auto, business, life insurance needs. He's just here to empower you to live your best life with confidence and know that your coverage actually makes sense. Plus, he's a good dude, so he's giving back to the Growl Pals, as so many of the people we partner with are one to do. Giving away 2 tickets to Bengals versus Ravens. All you got to do is request the free, no obligation quote, no policy purchases necessary to enter or win. Then you're in for a chance to win seats. And also make sure that your coverage actually makes sense. Link to enter is in the episode notes, or you can just go to thegrowlerpodcast.com. So if you're ready for insurance, it's simple, personal, handled by someone who's a trusted Growl Pal. Reach out to Josh at Camargo Insurance and send in your RPBs too. Josh at CamargoInsurance.com. All right, this week's winner selected is Scott F. And Scott's question, Jay, is in the last game of the 2025 season, the starting quarterback for the Bengals will be Jake Browning, Joe Burrow, another quarterback not on the current roster or practice squad. What say you?
I'm going to boot another quarterback. If things go, if they tread water, I just don't see this team bailing on Jake Browning. If things go horribly bad, I don't see them making a trade for anybody. Why give up assets when you're not going anywhere anyhow? And they just don't trade a lot anyhow. I can't. Maybe they go out and sign somebody, but who is out there? I mean, they already got Mike White and Sean Clifford. Who else are they going to pluck off the street that could possibly start in week 18? That one for me is an easy boot. I'm going to run with Jake Browning. I just think too many things have to go right for it to be Joe Burrow. Number one, the timeline has to be spot on, 3 months, and he's back. And I'm not confident. Nothing against Joe. I know he's going to work his ass off in rehab, but it just seems overly optimistic. And then number two, they have to be in the mix for him to even consider coming back and play. And I don't know that that's going to be the case right now. So I'll run with Jake Browning. I'll pass on Burrow and I'll boot somebody else.
Yeah. I think that's the right order. You got to get Jake to week 18.
Yeah.
And I just mean from a health perspective.
Right.
Like,
I know
this guy's been taking a lot of hits. He's never had to survive a full season like this before, in front of a line that's just not protecting very well. So I think a big part of this question is, can Jake get to the end? And then at that point, I think that you start asking different questions. I don't know that I might boot Burrow. I think it's possible that they go to another QB. I'm not going Russell Wilson. Why do people want Russell Wilson?
No idea. I mean, when he was good, when he was relevant, they had a great running game. The Bengals don't have a running game. What's he going to do for you? And if you watch that Sunday night game against Kansas City, the decision making, I don't know. I would, if we're taking a Giants quarterback and bringing him to Cincinnati, I would much rather have Jameis Winston than Russell Wilson.
Yes, much rather have Jameis Winston if you're going outside. Maybe that's what they're willing to do as they go with Jackson Dart. But I mean, Russell Wilson, have we not seen how many places does he have to get fired from until you're like, maybe he's the answer? I mean, Seattle, Denver, Pittsburgh, the Giants, fired. Like, I don't understand why it's like, yes, finally a savior. Like, stop it. I don't understand that. I don't understand that. But I've only said this about 100 times now. I still think Tyler Huntley is somebody to keep an eye on. That's all. He's on the Ravens practice squad. He's played a lot more than the dudes they have on their current practice squad. I'm just saying it could be a pluck where you bring that guy in. I'm just saying if we're answering this question, he could be the one that I would keep an eye on. But anyway, I guess I probably am going to go the same way as you, but I'm tempted to boot Burrow because the chance of this team being relevant and he ends up being healthy enough feel a little slim to me, but we shall see. All right. Again, you want to win Bengals-Ravens tickets. I don't care what the state of the team is. You want to win Bengals-Ravens tickets. It's going to be a fun time. Go commiserate. Either enjoy this miracle run or go commiserate with your friends. You want to go to the game. The giveaway form is at thegrowlerpodcast.com. Or just go to, email josh@camargoinsurance.com. He will help you out. Takes 2 minutes. Get a no obligation quote. No policy purchases necessary. And then you'll have a chance to go see Bengals-Ravens. Your odds would be great. Get in on it today. All right, now let's bring in our good friend and yours, Mo Egger from ESPN 1530. How we doing, bud?
Wonderful. How about you guys?
Great.
Doing great.
Oh,
I have a question for you, though, related to our Run Passer Boot. We're talking about giving away tickets to the Ravens game. I was thinking, yeah, maybe another benefit of that is you can hang out with Mo.
Oh,
has it ever gotten so bad? How many home games have you missed? Have you ever gone just because you didn't have something else to do, work related or whatever? How many times have you just said, I've had it with this team, I'm not going?
So there have been games where I haven't gone because there's been a work conflict, like a UC basketball thing or something like that. Christmas Eve 2017, I said no. And I had a newborn at home, so I made a domestically inclined decision. But it was that Lions game. I think, and maybe 2019 there was a game that surpassed it. I think that is the lowest amount of tickets they have ever scanned in the history of that stadium for that game against the Detroit Lions. So newborn at home, Christmas Eve. I said to my buddy who I had tickets with, like, how you feeling about Christmas Eve watching Bengals v Lions? And he's like, well, I don't want a divorce. And I said, well, I've had one and I don't want a second. So that is, I think, the only one that I have said. And I'll be honest with you, like, I watched the game. My grandmother was in the hospital, so I watched the first half with her, and then I went home, and as I'm driving across the bridge, the game is happening, and I'm listening to Dan and Lapp, and I'm like, I kind of wish I was over there. There hasn't really been a game where I've been like, I'm done. I'm just not going. I like going to games. I like going to the Bengals games, and so regardless of the status of the team, and some might say I'm part of the problem, I guess. I go.
Even bad games are good. And that brings us to talking about where they're at right now, coming off of Sunday. I want to go this. This is a popular topic, one that happens after seemingly every loss anymore. But this one in particular, and the state of the way people feel about this team right now, is Zac Taylor, is just the fan base's general distaste and the criticisms that kind of get wheeled back out when they reappear, and like they have this Sunday. In your mind, how much of this do you put on Zac Taylor right now?
Well, he is the play caller, and so over the course of his time in Cincinnati, where I think he has had successes that I'm not sure he gets enough credit for. And I can give you examples if it will help. 2020, as great as Joe Burrow is, to get a quarterback ready to play week 1 and play okay, nearly deliver a victory with no preseason games, the weirdest training camp ever, and an offseason where he's learning the offense from his parents' couch in Athens, Zac Taylor doesn't get credit for that. He should. Game planning around this massive deficiency of an offensive line in the playoffs in 2021 and winning games on the road and putting this team on the cusp of a championship, in my opinion, that's really good coaching. Having Jake Browning ready to go in 2023 and play capably, like, coaching doesn't play a role in that, and there are assistants and coordinators, but like, I have been very willing to say, like, hey, I'm not sure Zac gets credit for that, or Zac gets enough credit for that. I'm not sure that folks mention the role of coaching with those things. I'm not putting this very well. So I don't believe in gratuitously banging on Zac Taylor. I've gone out of my way publicly to say, like, here are some examples of things I think he has done well. I think the team, for the most part, has played very hard for him. I thought the way the team performed at the end of the 2019 season, as hard as they played when nobody wanted them to win, like, there's something to be said about the role of the head coach. There have been very few, and you guys are in there, but there have been very few, like, just locker room issues that have, come into the public view that aren't related to a player versus the front office. Like, I think Zac's done a lot of things really well, but one of the common themes over the course of his time here has been the function of the offense. And we've talked about this, we've talked about lulls in the offense, despite the weaponry, right? Like, where they have, even when they have overall been very productive and they've won games, there just seems to be these stretches in games and in seasons where offensively they just can't put it together. The current topic right now is the reoccurring issues with the run game and the fact that they can just never build a consistent ground game, no matter who the offensive linemen are, no matter who the running back is, no matter who the offensive coordinator is. And so I have always wondered, and will continue to wonder, would the offense function better if Zac Taylor was not as involved in play calling? There's two things, I've been thinking about this morning. There's two things that I roll my eyes at when I hear people talk. One is attendance at games. Like, I'm going to have to do it today. I have less than zero interest in talking about Reds attendance, Bengals attendance. I've never cared less about anything. But it's a big thing on Twitter today because either the crowd last night at the ballpark was a great crowd or it was a pathetic crowd based on what you look at on Twitter. Also, play calling, because most of us have no idea what goes into calling one play. Most of us have no idea what it takes to build and construct an offense. And so I am typically the last person to bang on play calling. It's not about play calling. It's about the overall function of the offense. Could it operate more effectively? Could it operate more smoothly? We saw in game one this year, there were apparent communications issues. First play, the second drive of the game, they have to burn a timeout. Like, how do you do that? So I have always wondered, and will continue to wonder, could the offense function better if Zac was not the play caller? Maybe not. This does not diminish the role of Dan Pitcher and the other offensive coaches in constructing game plans, in calling plays, in deploying personnel. But I will continue to wonder, like, if Zac's background is offense and the Bengals continue to have specific offensive issues, how do I weigh that against what I think are pretty good leadership qualities and pretty good qualities in relation to preparation? I don't know if I put that well, but my biggest thing with Zac is he's an offensive guy. He's intimately involved in game planning. Of course he's going to be, but is there something about his role with the offense that could change, or that he could be put on the hot seat to do better that would make this offense function better? Whether it's with Joe, Zac, whether it's throwing the ball, whether it's getting the play in, whether it's running the football. I hope that made sense.
It did. I think it so much of it is just knee jerk, where people just want change for the sake of change. And
right.
People don't look at the other side of it. If you're going to make that change mid-season and change play callers, you would really rather have, as much as faith as you have in Dan Pitcher, he's never done it before. He's never been a play caller. So you want to put a first-time play caller in as opposed to Zac, who's done it he's in his 7th year now, and he's taken this team to the playoffs, 4 straight winning seasons, all that. Same thing with getting rid of him as a coach. There's no guarantee that the next coach is going to be better. The chances are actually that he's going to be worse. And people just think that the answer is always out there somewhere, and that's not always the case. And I'm trying to think, has this team ever hired a head coach that had I think Bruce Coslett had head coaching experience.
Bruce Coslett
he was with the
Jets.
Jets.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, they go get first. The same thing. If you get rid of Zach, they're most likely they're going to go get a guy that's never been a head coach before. And I just think that everybody gets so upset when things go bad and they fire everybody, and that they just don't take the time to think about it rationally about, well, what are you going to get as a replacement?
Yeah,
I just want to, before you start, Mo, I want to make
sure
I say one thing just for our audience to hear, that Zac Taylor's not getting fired during this season.
No,
stop it.
Yeah,
stop yelling, fire Zach now. Stop yelling he shouldn't have a job tomorrow. Stop screaming about it. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your fingertips at the computer. He's not getting fired during the season. I'm sure there could be discussions that could happen at the end of the year, and we'll talk about that plenty. It's not happening, so stop. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to make sure that got out there first. Go ahead, Mo.
The very first question I was asked on the radio Monday was, should Zac Taylor be fired? And my response to that was, I don't know what that accomplishes. I don't.
No.
I mean, aside from, satisfying the bloodlust that people have, and I get it, dude. I'm a fan. Watching that game on Sunday was appalling. It was putrid. It was straight out of pick your least favorite 1990 season. So, yeah, you're going to aim your ire at the head coach. I understand it, but okay, take a step back logistically. What is that going to accomplish? What is that going to accomplish when right now the team is playing with one hand behind its back because it doesn't have its meal ticket? I don't think that accomplishes anything. I certainly do believe that when you're a head coach of a team, if this goes sideways, let's take a look and go, okay, well, last year it was to swap out a bunch of coaches, new offensive line coach, new coordinator. You only get so many of those. And if this were to be a year where Joe played the entire season and played great and they wasted it again, you're obviously examining the role of the head coach. Zac Taylor certainly should have his job status looked at the end of the season, if it goes the way many of us fear. But I think Zach's an okay coach. I don't feel that strongly about him. I don't feel if they fired him at the end of the season, I think my first thought would be you know what, man, that's the most successful coach in many respects in the history of the franchise. And Bengals fans deserve to show him a level of gratitude that I would hope they would. And if they keep him, okay. I view their issues as kind of above and beyond Zach. It's a roster issue. It's a roster construction issue. It's a Joe Burrow health issue. It's maybe, you might argue, misplacing your priorities in terms of where you spent your money issue. It's not being proactive in relation to some of the contracts you got done issue. Zach has very little to do, if anything, with any of those things. So, yeah, okay, let's see how this season unfolds. If it devolves to the point where you legitimately talk about players quitting, or it feels like he's lost the team, or there ends up being a fracture in the locker room, those sort of things, all right. My take has never been fire Zach, the head coach. From where I sit, just not as close as you guys, I think he has a lot of good qualities as a head coach. As somebody in charge of the offense, I always come back to his time at UC. Tony Pike and I talk about this all the time. That 2016 season at UC was bad for a lot of different reasons. The main one was they went, I've lost track of how many consecutive quarters without a touchdown. I think we got to 13. We would talk after those games man, in this era of college football, why does this look like this? And so that was Zach's time as the play caller that entered my public consciousness entered my consciousness for the first time. And so I will always wonder until we look at the offense and go, boy, this is functioning consistently at its best, and go, is there something that could be done play calling wise during the week that could change, that makes the offense function more smoothly? And would it be, Brian Callahan what's the word?
Absolved himself.
Absolved himself. Thank you. It's early, of play calling duties in Tennessee. That may not work. I don't think it is. Titans look like they're awful. But could something like that work here where he just says, like, you know what? On game day, I'm not going to be the main guy in the quarterback's earpiece or helmet, headset or whatever. So, but I don't view firing Zac Taylor as something that is, boy, if it happened now, it'd be fun to talk about, it'd be interesting, but I don't think for me, that's not something really on my radar.
At what point do we stop killing him over the UC offense? Like,
no, never.
I understand. I'm sure, it's fine. Like, I get that the one of the biggest problems he faces is that's his first impression he had with this entire, with a big portion of this fan base. Because I'll just say EPA per play, and everyone's gonna be like, yeah, because Burrow. Okay, you still have to make the guy work. There's plenty of good quarterbacks that people haven't been able to make work effectively. 13th in EPA per play in 21, 6th in 22, 13th in 23, with half the season being Browning, 6th last year in EPA per play. Like, never below 13th under any circumstances, which have included truly dreadful offensive lines. You talked about also, and he's not in there in free agency being like, could you come up with the worst possible solution at both guard spots? Yeah. And I understand this comes off apologisty, and I'm not. I have lots of stuff that I want to point out about how bad they've been thus far. I just will never understand the refusal to use more under center play action compared to the rest of the league. I don't understand how they had so much success in the screen game with Jake Browning, but we haven't seen any of it this year with Chase Brown. Like, I have lots of issues and ways I think that you can change things. I also know there's a lot of smart people in that room. And Zac traditionally has done a good job of delegating and listening and finding those solutions using everybody. Like I've said before, he has been fired on the spot every single September that he's been on this job. Like, everybody's been like, get rid of this guy. And almost every single time, by the time they've gotten to December, have said that group did a pretty good job of fixing some stuff. Like they've done decent jobs of finding the problems, finding some workable solutions, and making it work, specifically offensively. The defense has had its own issues. And that's how you end up in the top half every single year. Some of that's Burrow related, some of it's not. I do think they have had some serious problems that they've had to work on and have found solutions for in the past, which is why I say give this time. Like, and you have to, like, screaming about fire and this sucks is a waste, because I think one of the things that you have liked most about this coaching staff that he has assembled has been their ability to problem solve on the fly during seasons. It may be the thing that they've done best, actually. And so I just think that it deserves that time, as they have this massive pile of crap sitting in front of them that they're trying to sift through right now. And if you listen to Rewatch and you heard Dan Pitcher talk, you hear them going through problem solving mode right now. I'm curious to see what it looks like in Denver. I'm curious to see what it looks like in the next home game against Detroit. And I think we can start to judge, as you start to get further into this gauntlet thing, how they're evolving and what kind of success they've had. Take the last time Jake Browning was in at quarterback, right? It was a disaster early. They figured out what was going wrong. They started working that problem. He started playing better. They won a few games. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying that they won't end up like that list that I showed to Jay before you came on, Mo, that showed all the teams that got their doors blown off in September and how terrible their seasons ended up being. I'm not saying they're not going to be on that list. I'm saying you got to give it time. Like, this has been a definitive part of his entire coaching career in the pros, has been taking these problems and generally his staff finding a pretty good way of getting them righted.
Yeah, I think I'm willing to judge him by the body of work this season to see how he and this staff adjust to the stuff that's been thrown at them. If they can't find solutions, if this unravels, then let's talk about whether this should continue, right?
Yes.
I'm here for that. Again, like,
yes,
I've said this for years, and I think it frustrates folks who call our show sometimes. Like, I don't feel that strongly about Zac Taylor. And maybe that's an issue, right? Maybe after this much time, I should feel strongly. And you mentioned the UC thing. Like, it's part of his story as an offensive guy. Like it is. It's not the only part of his story. Again, I mentioned, getting Burrow ready, the game planning around the bad offensive lines, the success they have had offensively, staying afloat and thriving at times with Jake Browning. Like those are all in the pro column. You check those boxes under pro for Zac Taylor. I just, when folks say to me he should be fired, I go, okay. And when you'll have a few defenders of Zac Taylor who would make it sound like he's Bill Belichick 2.0 without the 19-year-old girlfriend. I go, not really. Like I don't feel that strongly about him. And maybe I should, and maybe that's the problem.
Yeah.
But I am willing to say this year, like, buddy, you got 14 games. The good news is you're not 0-3. Let's see if you can figure this out. And you do have a track record of sort of solving problems on the fly. Let's see if you can figure this out. And if you can, all right, then let's talk about how they build their team and the way the offseason should look and better ways to have Joe Burrow function and ensure that he stays on the field. But firing him right now, I don't know. Again, other than satisfying the need to see someone's head on a stick, I don't know what that accomplishes. And frankly, like, I do think Zac Taylor has built up at least enough equity to avoid that being a major topic around here. I know many will disagree. I certainly have, on a week-to-week basis, can name any number of criticisms of Zac Taylor that we have talked about. But I think the body of work to this point has been good enough, in spite of my reservations about his role in the offense, to see if he and this staff can figure it out. And then after they've played 17 games or more, let's see how he did and then go from there. And I would imagine the folks who run the team will do the exact same thing, and they should.
I have a suggestion for you if you want to boost call volume. If they find a way to go to Denver and win and they're 3-1, open your show on Tuesday with should they extend Zac Taylor?
It is, but the dynamic that is interesting to me is, Marvin Lewis was here for a very long time. So it's easy to forget that there was a time where Marvin Lewis owned this damn town. And anything they did that was good was because of Marvin Lewis. Zac Taylor has never gotten that. And part of that is you exist in the shadow of your quarterback. That's how it works, right? But he has never gotten that. If I would have said and I did, like in the aftermath of the Super Bowl run, when we were kind of talking about what's next, my take on it was, we just watched a hell of a coaching job. We just watched, and because we beat him up and second guessed the play call with Samaje Perine at the end of the Super Bowl. And I said, okay, that's maybe one we all wish could be done differently. But we just watched a hell of a coaching job. And nobody wanted to say that. Nobody wanted to say that. At the end of the 2023 season, man, here comes a quarterback who has never played. And you've got to play in these high-stakes games. And Jake Browning wasn't awesome, but he was good enough to drag the team to New Year's Eve and give the team a chance to win in Kansas City. And I remember going like, all right, this season didn't go as planned. We're all frustrated. I think we just saw some pretty damn good coaching, man. And it's always been about coordinators and, everybody loved Brian Callahan and Lou Anarumo. And it's like, man, the head coach. So the frustrating thing for me is beat up on Zac Taylor when he deserves it. I do. But credit the guy when he deserves it. And for whatever reason, and I do not understand why, there has been a reluctance here to do that. And that to me is unfair. Again, if at the end of the season you want to go, look, it's time for a new voice. It's time to see if Joe Burrow can do better with a different head coach. It's time to find a head coach who says, I don't want to call plays. I'm all in for all of those discussions. But over the course of these, like when you refuse to give someone credit for anything, then to me the criticism sounds lazy and sounds gratuitous. And that's what bothers me about a lot that I hear in relation to Zac Taylor. You want to bang on him for what he does poor? Fine. But at the very least, like, acknowledge his role in some of the successes. And for whatever reason, and I will never understand why until someone explains it to me, there has been a reluctance to do that. And that to me is what frustrates me about the Zac Taylor discourse.
Zac Taylor signed through 2026 and making $4.5 million. For reference, Andy Reid's making 20, Sean Payton's making 18. You can certainly see a situation where, I mean, again, he's gotten himself to a winning record 4 straight years, even with truly the worst defense maybe in the history of this team last year, and with Jake Browning the year before that. If it looks like that again, he's going to be back. If you get into a season that looks like 5-12 or 4-13, and it feels like you're losing in the locker room, I think there's a serious discussion. But I think the gut is that he will see out through 2026, that there wouldn't be an extension, that you get into go prove yourself in the lame duck year in 26, like with Burrow again. And that feels like the far and away most likely scenario. But again, so much changes over the course of one season in terms of how things are going. So just let it play out. I think
here's my quick question for you guys. If at the end of the season, Zac Taylor was let go, how hot of a commodity would he be around the league? For, let's say there's the average number of openings, 6 to 8, I guess, on a given year. How hot of a commodity would he be as a head coach?
Yeah, I was going to ask that same question, not just this year, but whenever his time in Cincinnati ends, will he be a head coach somewhere else ever again? And I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
I think he probably has to go the route of being a play caller and then having some success and some good teams. And I don't think he would, if he was let go at the end of this year, I don't think he'd be a head coach next year, but I do think he would get another shot at some point.
He has, it's funny, like so much of the coaches he was surrounded with and kind of came up with in the league are now head coaches. Like it's like half the damn league are people that were kind of his friends or were with him or he has connections with. And so I would be stunned to see him not be someone's coordinator. Just by the nature of he has so many relationships around the league now at this point. And then that opens you up to work your way back up, which is pretty standard stuff for any coach that gets fired. What Vrabel takes the year off and kind of consults and sits back and waits and waits for the stink to come off of him and then goes back out. I mean, even Belichick, right? Despite whatever, I mean, philosophy was to take the year off and sit back and get away and get the stink off you. Like that's kind of stuff that happens. And some guys end up getting a second chance and do better there, and some don't. But I think that would probably be the most likely thing that would happen with him. But I mean, again, long way to go. Let's worry about today's problems, not tomorrow's problems. How about that? There's plenty on the current plate, including their refusal to run under center play action at significant levels. It can help you. You're good at it. But I will save that. Mo, thank you for your time. Appreciate it, buddy.
I added absolutely nothing today.
I loved it. Thank you. Much thanks to Mo Egger for joining us, and catch him and I together on ESPN 1530 every Tuesday from 3 to 4, except next Tuesday, of course, coming off the Monday night game, because everything's screwed up coming off the Monday night game. But we're at Oakley Greens in Oakley almost every Tuesday from 3 to 4. All right, Jay, you got some stats for me?
I do. So, we've talked a lot about the run game, and I went and I looked. So the Bengals are averaging 2.4 yards per carry. What is the worst yards per carry through the first 3 games of a season? The Bengals are 15th worst since the 1970 merger. So some bad teams on that list, but I was more curious what of those teams that were worse, how did they finish the season? Did they get it turned around? 7 of the 14 finished last in the league in yards per carry. 3 games is small sample size, but very telling when it comes to that stat. 2 others finished next to last. They at least got out of the basement. 2 others finished in the bottom 5. The Bengals in 2019, they were 2.4 yards per carry. They ended up finishing 24th out of 32, and they got it turned around a little bit. To Mo's point, your point as well, they figured things out. They get a little bit better. I think Joe Mixon took off a little bit in that 19 season. the San Diego Chargers are the ones to kind of look at as the model, with LaDainian Tomlinson, Hall of Famer. He ended up rushing for 1,450 yards that year. They went from dead last in the league in 2007 through 3 games and finished 8th in rushing yards per attempt. That's a heck of a turnaround after 3 games. But most of these teams, you are what you are through 3 games. So that's something I know a lot of Bengal fans don't want to hear, but it's hard to overcome that kind of start.
I did. I detailed this in my story today when I was going through the worst feature backs through the first 3 games. Yeah. And he, of course, did that 1.97 yards per carry is the worst by someone with at least 40 carries through the first 3 games. But next on the list, almost tied with him, was 2000 Corey Dillon, who was exactly 2 yards per carry through the first 3 games. He ended up with 1,435 yards, 4.6 per carry, and broke Walter Payton's record against Denver in week 8 with 278 yards. It's arguably his signature season. And it started off disastrously with 3 games of just terrible 2 yards per carry stuff. And, they ended up, there's a lot going on there. You're talking Achilles Smith, no pass game, a lot of things getting figured out. There's a lot of a mess happening, but it ended up being one of his greatest seasons. So don't give up hope, Chase Brown. Keep that dauber up. Maybe it'll be your Corey Dillon season.
I did. I put these stats together before I read your story. Then I actually clipped this line from your story. It says slow starts don't necessarily predict poor seasons, and they don't. They tend to lean towards them, but they don't necessarily predict them. And you also mentioned how bad the Bengals have been on first and second down running the ball. So I looked at the you can go back to 91 for play data. The Bengals 2.35 yards per carry on first and second down ranks 17th worst in the Super Bowl era. The crazy thing is, of those 17 teams, 4 are Cincinnati Bengals units. The 1996 team had 1.7. That's the worst, or that's the second worst of anybody. The 2000 Bengals, again, Corey Dillon, 2.16 on first and second down through 3 games. And Zach's first Bengals team in 2019, 2.24, 12th. So 4 of the top 17, or 4 of the worst 17 are Bengals units.
Jay, this feels like another season where we end up talking about the Dayton Triangles a lot, doesn't it? Yep.
The worst since
the Dayton Triangles in 1942. Can already feel it coming on. All right. On that note, let's get into Growler Bet. Speaking of unprecedented, let's get into the Growler Bet. The Growler Bet from last week was what would be the total penalty yardage because the evil Ron Torbert was taking over. And Ron Torbert made himself known very quickly. 3 flags in the first 2 plays, including one that looked ridiculous. And he turned out to be a very equal opportunity crappy ref. A lot of bad calls for both sides. I think Vikings fans probably got the worst of it. The Bengals ended up taking on 45 yards. Jay, you only missed by 1 yard.
So close.
Just by 1 yard. Congratulations to you on that. Yeah. That said, right there, so close for you. I had 55, so you're the winner on that. 45 was the most popular answer amongst the Growler bets. 5 people sent in 45. 5 separate people said the exact 45 number was going to be it. Shout out to them. To Chris Whitney, Logan Martin, Drew Kelleher, Dan Reesing, and Wade Harwood. So I've got to break this tie.
Yeah.
And I've decided that I'm going to break this tie by the 5 of you sending me a Torbert tiebreaker in the subject header. Okay. All 5 of you. It means you got to listen. You have to listen to this. And I need you to send this in. Penalty yards, total penalty yards in Torbert's next game on Sunday Night Football, Packers at Cowboys. I need total penalty yards in Packers at Cowboys from Ron Torbert's crew from the 5 of you, from Chris Whitney, Logan, Drew, Dan, Wade. Send it to me with Torbert tiebreaker in the subject header, and we will see who gets the free drinks at one of our live shows here this year. So keep that in mind, and we'll have the next week's growler bet for those of you. Just check out our prediction game preview show this weekend leading you up to Monday Night Football against Denver. But all right, congratulations to all of you guys. Some fun answers I want to give shout outs to. Cody Story went 69 penalties for 420 yards. Okay, we're going there. We're going all the way. All right, I see you. Dale Drummond with we've referenced this, but it just deserves anytime you go to. This might be my favorite Lebowski quote of all time. You want a growler? I get you a growler. Believe me, there are ways, dude. You don't want to know about it. Believe me. Hell, I can get you a growler by 3:00 this afternoon with nail polish, of course. The toe conversation with Walter Sobchak, which we've referenced before. Shout out to Matthew Summers, who put together a poem. He's done these before, called A Punfortunate Series of Events. I really appreciated it. I thought it was funny. It was a touch too dirty. I'm not going to lie. It was a little too dirty for me to go with here on the pod. And I understand this is a podcast that has had a significant amount of time talking about dildos in recent weeks, but I just didn't want to go there today. The other one, we had this from Andrew White. I think Paul dropped his growler in row 22 of Delta Flight DL2805. A touch too close from you, Andrew. Not going to lie. A touch too close on that one. Yes, I'm going to hope that you were the one that was behind me in the flight that gave me a shout out, and I appreciated that. It was good to see you. I wish we could have talked more, but I was trying to get the hell out of there. I hope that was you, and this isn't just somebody who's researched my flight history or was just stalking me from afar. But yes, enjoyed that one. And finally, somebody going with the theme of us going up to the Minnesota, up into the Great Lakes region in a Fargo quote. Mm-hmm. And I guess that was your accomplice in the wood chipper and those people in Brainerd. And for what? For a little bit of a growler bet? There's more to life than a little growler bet, you know? Don't you know that? And here you are, and it's a beautiful day. Well, I just don't understand. It's my terrible Minnesota accent.
It got better as the quote went.
I did. I know. I forgot at the beginning I was going to do the accent, so then I started instituting it halfway through. It was pretty much a fail on all accounts, but I wanted to give it its rightful due and appreciation for someone trying to be on theme, which I appreciate. All right, Jay, you got trivia for me?
I do have some trivia. So if the Bengals can win in Denver on Monday night, it'll be their 3rd straight win in Denver. That'll be tied for the 2nd longest active road winning streak against a specific opponent. Which team do they have the longest active winning streak against in that team city?
Ooh, wow. Which team do they have the longest active winning streak against in that team's city? That is a really hard one. It could be somebody in division, but they've struggled in the division. We know it's not Baltimore. They've got a couple wins against Cleveland, but it's got to be more than 2. So, boy, I don't know. I don't know that I have a good answer on that one. What's our list?
Yeah, you got to go to the opposite, not familiar, an NFC team that they only see every 4 years, every 8 years in that team city. They've won 6 straight games in Detroit. They haven't lost a game in Detroit since 1970. And Detroit, I mean, it's in Cincinnati, which is great for us because we have to have a live show, but the Lions are the next opponent after Denver.
Guess the line, Jay. What do you think the line is going to be for Bengals-Lions?
Who the Lions have this week?
They are hosting the Browns. So, who knows? But they're hosting the Browns this week, and then they come to Cincinnati.
I'll say Lions by 5.5.
On the road, Lions by 5.5. I mean, this is one where so much depends on if the Bengals look bad again,
right?
In Denver, the line is going to be hard against in significant. I feel like 3. I think I might go 3. So we'll come back and judge that later if we can remember to. But I was just curious. That was a really impressive win against the Ravens.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, for them to line up and beat them up in their building, that Ravens defense is looking a lot like last year's before they started getting better Ravens defense. I mean, they got big problems. I never really understood why everyone thought their secondary was going to be some kind of awesome unit. I know they had Kyle Hamilton and they added some pieces like, you don't take other people's scraps. Like, you've got Cheeto, who's getting older, Jair Alexander, who was kind of run out of Green Bay, Nate Wiggins, who I guess the expectations were he was going to be better. We love Malachi Starks, of course, but there was just this assumption that the Ravens were going to have some great defense when their defense was just as bad as the Bengals at one point last year. They certainly have looked like a very flawed group as they've been Bengaling this season. They've now scored 30 plus and lost twice to the Ravens and to the Bills, or to the Lions and the Bills. So really interesting to see how that's going to go. And now you have the Chiefs. You have Ravens Chiefs to see who goes to 1-3.
Crazy.
And Bengals fans are well aware of some of the math that you start playing in your head when you move to 1-3. And so a fascinating game, both in the AFC North and across the AFC, coming up this weekend. All right, good trivia, Jay. That one was hard. That was too hard. Detroit. I mean, that goes all the way back. I mean, that is too far to ask me to go back. All right.
I wonder how many of our listeners were even alive in 1970, the last time they lost in Detroit.
Yeah, unbelievable. All the way back. Which is stunning to me that I always think of the Calvin Johnson, Mossing, Reggie Nelson, and Adam Jones game.
They won that in overtime.
The Bengals won that game.
In overtime, yeah.
I always thought of it as an L, but you're right. That was a win. That was Nugent in overtime.
Yeah.
Okay. Arby's. I got a trip Arby's for you, Jay. So this is pretty fun. So my wife and her friends, there was a ton of people that went to this game. We ended up seeing so many people that went on this trip. It was great, ton of fun. It was the one trip my wife did with me. So we went up on Friday, and it was a blast. Cannot recommend Murray's Steakhouse enough. They brought out a steak flight, Jay. I'd never heard of such a thing. There are 3 top cuts. They bring them out. You get each one. It was unbelievable. Anyway, if you ever go to Minneapolis, take on Murray's. It's worth it. That said, the funny thing happens is that her and her friends are at the game, and at the 2-minute warning, they decide they want to try to get ahead of the lines, and get some food, go to the bathroom, get a drink, so they don't get caught at halftime in all these lines. So they go down, and of course, we all know what happened after the 2-minute warning. The Vikings just start pouring it on, 3 fumbles and 4 snaps. Well, so she's in the line to get like nachos, and the fight song starts. This fight song, Bengals fans that are listening right now know how many times they heard the fight song. They know all the words. They know every single bit of how the fight song goes. The fight song plays, and then she's still in line to get nachos. The fight song plays again. There's not view of the game. So she's just hearing it, and she's just turning to her friends like, guys, this is mathematically impossible. Like the physics of how football works. How could the song be playing again? There's no way the song can be playing again. And then it would play again. Like, guys, how's the song playing again? What is happening? And comes back out, and it's 34-3, and she's holding her nachos and a drink. And it's just like, how is it possible? And finds out. So didn't see any of what happened in that 2-minute warning, probably for the best. But I just love the idea of trying to figure out in your head, not watching that game, how the song continues to play over and over again.
She probably thought it was halftime, and they didn't have halftime entertainment, so they just played the song. And
I do want to give shout out to the halftime entertainment they did have. Corgi races. That was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It was like a corgi race tournament. They would line them all up. They'd all go down. The couple of winners would make advance to the next round, and it would eventually whittle down to a one-on-one match. It was great. Really enjoyed corgi races. I recommend, if you're listening, you have any influence making this happen, this feels like a really good thing to do at Paycor at some point. I would enjoy it. We've already had mascot football. Already seen some mascot football this year.
In Cleveland, yeah.
We got that in Cleveland in week 1, which got me juiced up for mascot football happening again later this year. So anyway, good stuff. Great trip. Loved the city. Loved the venue. Just off the charts venue. Just unbelievable place. So incredibly walkable. Like you could walk in their downtown. You go hotel right in the middle. You could walk to Target Field. They had a day-night doubleheader going on. You could walk to US Bank easily. You could walk to a bunch of great restaurants, breweries, you name it. It's a great place. I really enjoyed my time there. My first time being in that city. I enjoyed the city. So, which I found out on Twitter is apparently a controversial topic I wasn't allowed to say. My mentions were filled very politically with just saying I thought I had a good time in the city. Had no idea. So I'm staying out of it. That's
People
all
are
I'm
just mad
saying.
about everything.
I just enjoyed myself. That's all I'm saying. I enjoyed myself in Minneapolis. That's all I'm saying. I apologize to everyone for everything. Anyway, all right. Thanks everybody for listening and for watching. And we'll be back with Who Dey Light coming up on Friday. We'll have our prediction video and our growler bet and all that stuff coming up as well, leading you up to Monday Night Football in Denver. The walkout, rewatch coming off that, all the normal things you come to expect. We hope you'll be sticking with us, and we will talk to you next time. Have a good one, everybody.